Hey there. So, this week's episode is a peek behind the scenes of what I'm working on, and I'm hoping it will give you more clarity too on exactly what you should be doing now and what you should save for later. So, let's jump into episode 101.
Welcome to the Course Creators HQ podcast, helping you navigate the latest techniques for creating and marketing online courses. And now, here is your host, Julie Hood.
So let me start by saying, don't forget about the 100th episode grand prize drawing that we are doing. It's a set of courses, training, and one-on-one coaching with me worth $3,231. And plus, you can get entries every single day between now and July 15th of 2022. So make sure you go to the link in the show notes to sign up for the giveaway, or you can go to coursecreatorshq.com/giveaway and get into the drawing so that you can potentially win. And visit every day so that you can get even more entries. So you can end up with, I think, over 100 entries if you do everything on the list. So I'm hoping you can jump in for that. Okay, so the past 2 weeks, I've been super heavy into planning mode. For two reasons, actually. First one is it's really good time of the year to do this. I just finished up the 24-hour course creator launch. We're heading into the last 6 months of the year. And then second, I've also been doing this with my Course Profits Accelerator members, so to help them plan out the rest of their years. And so it's just been a really good time for this. And I thought you might be interested in how we're doing this, what questions we're asking, and some of the answers that I've come to. So I'm hoping that will be insightful for you too. So there's one big question that you need to answer at the end of this process, and that's, where do I need to focus? So there are tons and tons of ideas for us out there, especially as entrepreneurs. We are constantly seeing and finding and coming up with new ideas, and there's never going to be enough time for all of them. That was a big insight I would say I've had recently. I used to get frustrated because I didn't have enough time, and I finally recognized, even if I had as if I could get rid of everything I didn't want to do, there still wouldn't be time for all of these ideas. So I have to narrow down and really get myself to focus in on the ones that are going to be the most important and have the most impact. And periodically then I go in and I reevaluate and see what I want to shift, what I want to keep, and what I want to get rid of. And I'll be honest with you, this is a really tough space for me to stay in, because I'd much rather have the goal, have the plan, kind of have the layout of, this is what I need to do, so let's just keep executing. Because being in this kind of limbo land of, ooh, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do that, it's really, really easy for me personally to shift in to the negative with this and hit that overwhelmed feeling of like, oh my gosh, there's so much, I don't know where to focus. And there's too much to do and not enough time for all of it. And I've been in that space in the past, and it's not a good place to be. So I've got a guest coming on sometime this summer. Keep your eye out for it. She's going to talk about burnout and overwhelm and helping us avoid that. So we'll get into that more later. But the main goal for me was to give myself these 2 weeks and keep the deadline there of, okay, you're going to make decisions at the end of the 2 weeks, and then you're going to have it set up for the rest of the year. You're not going to live in this kind of limbo land very long. Okay. So one of the first tasks, if you're going to do something similar for yourself, if you're going to set aside a week, set aside 2 weeks, however you're going to do that, is I want you to capture all of the ideas that start bouncing around your head. And this is actually something you should be doing all the time, but especially during these 2 weeks, because I pick one notebook where I put everything I come up with, the things that are coming to me. Because once you start in this process, you'll start getting lots and lots and lots of ideas. So make sure you're writing them down. Even if you don't end up doing them right now, we want to capture them so that you can come back to them later. And you have this full list to look at as you finish with this planning program. And for the rest of this process, make sure you use what works for you and then ignore what doesn't feel like it's a good fit, because I think that's one of the big secrets is figuring out what works best for you. So I'm sharing my full process so you can pull out the pieces that you think will be helpful for you. Okay, so the second part of the where do I need to focus question that we're trying to answer is, what should I be doing now and what do I need to leave off for later? And I will tell you, this is so important that you do things in the right order. And I wish when I had started that I'd had someone to say this to me. And because otherwise what you do is you end up spending a lot of time and probably a lot of money on things that aren't going to move you forward today for the stage that you're in right now. Because there's so many wonderful tools and strategies and honestly shiny objects that you can very, very, very easily get distracted if you don't take the time to figure out the right order to do things. And I've been working on this for months now, trying to get the right order for my students, because I wanted them to have this blueprint of do this now, save this, and do this later. And so finally on Saturday morning, I woke up with the blueprint that I'm giving to my clients and my students for this exact thing. It has 3 different stages, and depending on where you are, I tell you exactly where you need to be focusing during the first stage, the second stage, and the third stage. So if you want to know more about this blueprint, you might want to consider applying for one of my Kickstart Your Profit sessions. They're a $500 value, but I'm doing them for free for the next few weeks. So based on your answers, after you fill it out, I'll point you in the next best step for you. So it might be a course that I have. It might be a VIP day with me. It might be the Course Profits Accelerator program that I have, or something else. So I'm offering these Kickstart Your Profit sessions for free right now in July. So if you want to apply, the link is in the show notes. Look for Kickstart Your Profits application, and then you can sign up and fill that out. It won't take terribly long, but there are some specific questions that really helps me know where to point you in the right direction. So hopefully that will also be helpful for you going forward for the rest of the year. Okay. So where do you start then if you're in this stage of, okay, what should I do now and what should I do later? So this is where I start when I get into the nitty-gritty of figuring out the answer to that question. First, I start with my 3 main products. I have the 24-hour course creator that helps you get your course created. I have Course Profits Accelerator that helps people who have a course market and sell it, and then figure out the hundreds of different ways that you can do that and which ones to focus on. And then the third thing is I have VIP days and half days that I work with for clients who want a really quick kickstart and maybe don't want to go through a several month-long program, like they want to get going today and get moving fast. So I take those 3 things and I put the launch days for each one of those on my calendar. So these are like the big rocks in the next 6 months, and they drive a lot of what I do going forward. So I start there with the launch days. Then I look at what has to get done over the next 6 months. So this is things like my group coaching sessions. I know when those need to be, or getting the taxes done. That's a big project that needs to happen. Or when we have family events, I always want to make sure those are on the calendar. So, in August, we're going to be moving my daughter back to her apartment for college. So I don't want to be doing a big launch right on top of that, because that's going to be several days that we're going to lose during that week. So first is looking at the calendar and filling those big things that are going to take up a lot of your time. The next thing I do is I look at some results and numbers to see what's working and what hasn't been working. So most importantly, I can figure out what to stop doing. Now, you might not be at the point yet where you can do this. So if you're kind of earlier in the process, you may not have as many numbers as I do. So remember, I've been at this for years. So I've got this whole system that can tell me where most of my lead and most of my subscribers are coming from. So your lead generation actually should be coming to you every single day, or every week at least, because there's nothing better than getting up and having an email that says, hey, you've got a new subscriber and this person signed up for this lead magnet for you. So I looked at my lead generation stats to see what was working, and I found out that a bunch of the summits that I was participating in, they only brought me a few leads, and they tended to be something that took up a decent amount of my time. So I really need to be more selective there and find out how I'm going to be getting leads before I agree to be on summits. The second thing I did notice is that several of the giveaways I participated in worked really, really well and got me a lot of leads. So I'm going to keep doing more of those. And I have some really amazing joint venture partners who were also a great source of new leads. So those were the things that work the best. And then I can see, some of these things that didn't pan out the way I wanted to. So those are the things that I'm going to stop doing. And then I can make some space for a lot of the new things that I want to do going forward. After I've looked at those numbers, then I go back and look at revenue numbers and see, where has the biggest part of my revenue dollars been coming from? And questions that you can use here are what's been working, what's not working for my sales. So a couple of things that I noticed have been really working well. That's the weekly podcast episodes, my weekly emails I send every single week, my clubhouse rooms for connecting and nurturing people. But one of the things I noticed is that during the first half of the year, I didn't promote my VIP days at all to you all. And it was mostly because I was really busy and I didn't take the time to fit those in, but that's one of my good revenue sources. So I need to make sure I do that going forward the last half of the year. And then another thing I noticed is I don't have enough of the funnel pieces when someone signs up to the list with me. And I've known this for a long time, and so that needs to go on the list this next 6 months to actually have a more specific process when someone signs up to introduce them to the different things that I'm offering. And then the last thing I noticed is that if you guys remember, I did the topic entitled Challenge in January and then did it again in May. And it takes a lot of my time. So I really love doing them. It's a great way to connect with y'all. But I think I'll test out something a little different in the fall that maybe won't be quite so time consuming. So you can see these are some pretty big decisions happening from looking at those revenue numbers. And then the next thing I want you to look at is your regular weekly routine. So that is, how does a normal week flow for you? What is it that happens every day? So I'll give you an example. I try to make sure that on Tuesdays I send out the podcast. Right now it's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I have a regular clubhouse room. I also try to send out an educational email either on Wednesday or Thursday, a promotional email on Friday, and then my Sunday night planning emails. So those are the things that happen every single week. And then I wanted to think about, okay, what can I add in or what can I stop for this weekly routine. And I'll tell you, when my kids were younger, this was a big one because their schedules were always changing. So then my schedules were always changing. So if you want help from this, I'll put a link in the show notes to a time map document that I use that works really, really well. And give yourself permission to change up your time map every time your life changes. So for us, when the kids were around, it was pretty much every season of the year there would be changes depending on what their sports practices and stuff looked like. Okay, the next question for you is to ask, what can I repurpose and what can I reuse? So with the 100 episodes of this podcast, 5 years of weekly emails, I have a lot of content already created. So what are some of the ways that I can repurpose and reuse it? And I think we're going to start creating more videos out of some of the content that we already have. So that's going to be the main repurposing that I want to think about using. And then the next question is, what do I want to do differently on social media? So for me, that's going to be more video, and I want to work that into the weekly routine. And I think it's a really good way to connect. So I just need to make that happen. And then the last question for you, if you have a VA or you're thinking about getting a VA, what can they do to take something off your plate, or maybe expand into a new area or a new channel for you? So this one is really big for me. My assistant Rez, she's incredibly productive. Like, I think I get a lot done. She is amazing. So I need to give more time to setting up and coordinating and reviewing what she's doing for me, because I'm the bottleneck in that process right now when I get busy with all these other things, and she's there to help me out. So I need to make sure I'm setting things up for her to be doing. So hopefully I haven't overwhelmed you with all of these questions. I'm going to put them in the show notes at coursecreatorshq.com/101 so that you can revisit them and do some thinking and some planning about what's going to happen for the next 6 months for you. So let me recap this process. Set aside at least a week or two as your what now, what later scheduling time. Capture all of your ideas in one place, a notebook or maybe the Notes app on your phone. And then grab a calendar and plan out the big rocks, the big things that are happening. When are your launches? What has to get done? What are the big family events I'm doing the next 6 months for this. And then look at your results and your numbers to see, what should I keep doing and what should I stop doing. Review your weekly routine and use that time map so you can sort of plan out the things that you want to make sure happen every week. And then figure out, what do I want to start or stop doing on social media? And how can a VA help me with any of the pieces of these puzzles? And so keep that idea list that you've generated during this time period, because some of those really good ideas might not be on the list for now, but they may be perfect for you next spring or next year. Like, don't lose track of that list, because it's got some gold in there, even if you can't be mining it right at the moment. And I really hope this episode helped you figure out where to focus and what not to be doing, because like I said, realizing that there isn't going to be time for everything. So figuring out where to spend your time and using it effectively in the right stages will make you so much more productive and make your business work so much better. So thanks for listening. Thank you for subscribing to the podcast. So glad you're here. Always, you can come visit the show notes at coursecreatorshq.com/the episode number. So it's /101 for this one, and I'll have all of the links that I talked about earlier, the giveaway, so you can get in the drawing, the questions that we ask in case you want to review them, the time map link, and the application for a Kickstart Your Profit session. So lots and lots of stuff in this episode. I hope it's been helpful for you and that you can keep moving forward in your course business, because honestly, we need you. The planet needs you. The world needs you. All of your students really need your brilliance to help move them forward in the world and get their lives, their businesses, their family lives in a better place. So thanks so much for jumping into the deep end of the pool of course creation and for listening to this podcast episode. And I hope you have an amazing week. I will catch you on the next episode, 102. Can you believe it? We're in 3 digits. Take care.